Hey, and welcome to Winning Daily Podcast. We're here for April the 5th. We got a host of picks today in a couple different sports. We're going to hit some WTA in the tennis, the Charleston Open. We're going to go over our NBA picks. We got a couple Champions League picks for tomorrow, and then we're going to do some MLB and, of course, hit up the national championship game. So let's start out in the WTA, the Charleston Open. These will start off tomorrow morning. Remember, they're on American clay, so be sure to check up on these players' clay court records, because it's probably the most different surface for a lot of these high-level players, and American clay plays a little different than most European or South American clay. So definitely look up that before you start taking any of the players, because the odds will be a little different, because trust me, the sports books know who plays well on clay and American clay and who doesn't. So let's start off in the WTA Charleston Open. We're going with Coco Gauff minus 140 versus Testovina Parokova. Really like Coco Gauff here. She's struggled a whole lot this year, but I think being back home, playing on U.S. soil at the Charleston Open, she'll at least be able to get past this round one matchup. So I think there's really good value at minus 140. Speaking of American players who have struggled this year, Sloane Stephens has had a lot of problems, but there was a little bit of a bump in Miami. Now, granted, that's on her hard courts where she really does well, especially in America. Can she bring that up to Charleston and continue that on the American clay? I think she will be able to handle it. So I have Sloane Stephens minus 135 versus Xinyu Wang. I think Xinyu will struggle on the clay, especially here in America. So I like the value in Sloane Stephens at minus 135. Didn't really like anything in the ATP in the Italian tournament in the men's. We'll check back tomorrow, see if a handful of better matchups are there that we can play, but we got a couple in the WTA today. We'll go on to the NBA. Only one pick for me. I'm going to ride the Oklahoma City Thunder at home plus 3.5 versus the Detroit Pistons. Oklahoma City starting to sort of drop a bit, but I think they'll be able to win this game here versus the Detroit Pistons. Just look for them to play harder, have a better day. I think there's a lot of value in them getting plus 3.5 at home versus the Pistons. So I definitely hammer that. Really like the Thunder today, plus 3.5 in the NBA. All right, we touched on it. The Champions League we're going to get into for tomorrow afternoon. Couple of great matches, a whole lot of fun teams here, a whole lot of wins amongst these teams, and really probably the three favorites in the Champions League the last handful of years, and a fun team in Dortmund who's really disappointed this year. Let's go first to the Liverpool-Real Madrid matchup. Really interesting matchup. I think this might be a draw. I'm not going to bet the draw. I think Liverpool is a better team here, especially watching both La Liga and the Premier League this year, and La Liga seems a bit slow, and their teams seem a bit down this year. Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, and Real Madrid, Sevilla also, and a host of those middle-tier teams that are usually pretty solid teams, just have not played as well this year, especially in Europe. So I'm going to ride Liverpool minus 125, but I'm going to take minus 125 draw, no bet here, because I just think this is setting up for a draw. Liverpool has struggled in Europe going on the road, so they might try to come away with there, and then once it gets back into Liverpool, try to take this and move on in the Champions League. It'll be very interesting what lineups get out there. Can Real Madrid's midfield control Liverpool? Liverpool has seemed to have found something with the two guys in the back and moving Fabinho back into his midfielder role, so should be a really interesting matchup, but I think overall I just like Liverpool, but I'm protecting myself with that draw no bet line and not just going all out on Liverpool on the three-way here, just because I think this will be a very, very close to the vest type game. Meanwhile, one I don't think will be close to the vest, and We're going to try to find any way we can to take Manchester City, and we're going to take the handicap here. We're going to take Man City -1, minus the 110 versus Dortmund here. Just think Man City will roll through Dortmund. Dortmund has really struggled. You saw it over the weekend with a loss to Frankfurt. Just really, really struggling to find ways to win games. So I think Man City will roll through them and really carve this defense up. Can Dortmund find a way to get some points? Haaland's scoring record in the Champions League has just been ridiculously good, but I just don't think their defense will be able to hold. I think Man City's possession will control. I think Dortmund will get frustrated. So I think this -1 handicap on Manchester City at -110 really is good value. So I definitely play that one. And if I was playing any of these two bets in the Champions League, I think I'd lean towards the Man City -1, -110. All right, let's get into some baseball today. 3 picks in the night slate today. We're going to keep riding our Padres, and we're going to keep riding our Padres run line here. I think they will just continue, like the Dodgers, to keep pounding folks. It's really even hard to find a Dodgers 1.5 run line that's any good. They're still giving good Padres run lines that are 1.5 that are really good. So we're going to take the Padres -1.5 plus 125 versus the Giants today and look for the Padres to continue to roll. And then we're going to take 2 very interesting matchups. Tampa Bay Rays -115 versus the Boston Red Sox. I just think this is good value here. The Tampa Bay Rays are a really good baseball team. I'm not sure the Boston Red Sox are a really good baseball team. Their hitting at least has a little life, but their pitching is just terrible. They throw out another really poor pitcher today. So I just look for Tampa Bay Rays. If Waka's sinker is working a little bit today, Tampa Bay should be able to hammer the Rays, and you're getting good value because people will overbet the Red Sox and the -115. So I really like Tampa Bay today. And then we're going to take a little bit of a long shot. Phillies start the season pretty well versus Atlanta. The Mets have not started the season because of playing the Washington Nationals in the COVID postponements. So DeGrom gets a start today. Maybe he starts out a little slow, being thrown off because he didn't get his normal start in the rotation. Maybe the Mets are just off because of the off days, and the Phillies are hitting the ground running. Philadelphia Phillies +170. Really think that's really good value at that kind of line right there. For, DeGrom starting off his first start of the season. So even then, he won't go deep. How much do you trust this Mets bullpen? So great value, Philadelphia Phillies +170. And then we'll get into the college basketball game tonight. If you watched mine and Dynamite David's tournament show where we picked all the games and had a handful of fun prop bets right at the start of the tournament, you know me and Dynamite both have Jalen Suggs to win player of the tournament at a really long shot odds, so maybe that one hits. I still have my Gonzaga going further than Baylor bet alive here at -135, so got decent value there as the 2 play. So if Gonzaga wins, I win that one, but I'm going to also take Gonzaga and take Gonzaga -10 plus the 230 here. So adjusted line, Gonzaga -10 plus 230. I feel like Gonzaga's scare was on Saturday in the tournament. I feel like this might be a roll for Gonzaga. They got over the nerves, and now they're ready to flow, and that offense will flow. But this is the matchup we've all wanted all season, so it should be an entertaining one. But I just have a feeling there's a chance for a Gonzaga blowout here. So Gonzaga -10 plus 230. Really, really like that value. Those are the picks for the day. Let's get into the DFS side of things and get our players of the day. Let's start out in the NBA and let's ride some point guards here. I don't really like the top 2 here, Westbrook and Doncic. Don't like the matchup for Doncic versus Utah, even though Doncic will get his numbers, but numbers to price here at 10,300. Don't really like him on FanDuel. Russ has just been ridiculous here, but just think there's better value if you drop down a little bit here. You could save $1,000 going to Kyrie Irving, and I just think he'll carve up the New York Knicks today. Also great value in De'Aaron Fox and Dejounte Murray, both way cheaper and really good matchups. Murray versus Cleveland, De'Aaron Fox versus Minnesota. De'Aaron Fox should light up Minnesota. Really, I think that's the best point guard value of the day. You drop down a little bit further, looking a little bit cheaper. The Conley play versus the Mavs might be worth it a little bit, especially at a 6,300 price tag on FanDuel. Clarkson should give you points at 5,600 versus Dallas defense. I look for him to get his 20 points today, so a little bit of value there at the 5,600, and then you drop way down here at 4,700 and 4,000. Emmanuel, quickly, I think this Brooklyn game will be a rout. Emmanuel's played really solid, but I think there's a lot of junk time in there for him to get his minutes in there and therefore get some stats. So 4,700. If you're looking for a really cheap play, might put in quickly there. And Dennis Smith Jr. Should find ways to get numbers at $4,000 if he gets enough minutes versus OKC today. That Detroit team, you just sort of never know. And with Dennis Smith, you just sort of never know. But it's good value for a chance at a big day if Dennis is feeling it. Let's move on to the shooting guards. I think you really have to play the top line guys here. Harden, Mitchell, Booker, DeRozan, I'd all go with. I wouldn't lean a little bit towards Beal. Just don't like this matchup, both for Westbrook and Beal versus Toronto. Toronto's really making a hard push to get into the playoffs. And I just think there's better value here. I spoke how I thought Brooklyn was going to annihilate New York, and I think you'll get huge games from both Harden and Irvin. And then you drop down into the higher tier, but not the elite in Mitchell, Booker, and DeRozan. I think you're getting great value there, both at 8,800 for Mitchell, 8,300 for Booker, and really great value at 7,900 for DeRozan. DeRozan would probably be my play here versus this Cleveland team. Spurs have been lighting up the scoreboard. They haven't been defending the scoreboard all that much, but that doesn't matter too much. You just want the stats here. So DeRozan at 7,900 would definitely be my play. You drop down a little bit. Edwards is chucking the ball up at a ridiculous rate, and when you chuck the ball up, you get numbers at 7,400 versus Sacramento. I think there'll be a high-paced game and a whole lot of points, so I definitely ride Anthony Edwards if I was looking for a little bit cheaper option than the DeRozan, Booker, Mitchell, and especially if I was looking cheaper than James Harden. It just might not all be all that pretty or efficient, and there's no telling what you'll get other stat-wise other than points. Halliburton, I look to have a pretty solid game across the board versus Minnesota. You might not always get that points, but you'll get a solid 13, like 5-5, and a steal or two there at 5,800. You could do worse. And if you're looking really cheap, Gary Trent really hasn't played all that great for Toronto, but this Washington defense is a sieve. So if he's going to get on track, I think Gary Trent at 5,400, really good value. And maybe throw Josh Jackson in there into the random Detroit failed lottery pick who might get his numbers in a day at 4,400. It's probably worth that lottery ticket if you're really trying hard to fit somebody dirt cheap into that salary cap versus OKC. On to the small forwards, and Scottie Pippen is rolling over in his grave to see the top of this list. This is just not a great list at the top. Anunoby's your top guy at 7,000. Barrett, Porter, Hield. I just would stay away of all those. If you're trying to fit elite level guys, I think this is really where you go cheap, and I had a lot of guys focused in the 5,000 area. Beasley was one of them versus Sacramento. He'll get his numbers. And then I really just liked all three of these in the Keldon Johnson, Bogdanovich, and Joe Harris range at 5,300 for Johnson and Bogdanovich, and 5,000 for Joe Harris. Just thought there was a lot of value there. You'll get solid production, and you won't just get a zero. You could possibly have a high-end 30 from them, but they will probably be in the 20s and at $5,000. That'll offset some of the elite guys. If you're really looking to go cheap, Chandler Hutchinson has been getting about 20 minutes a night for Washington. The numbers haven't always been there. I think he threw up one really good game, and then they've been mediocre. But for base price, if you can get any sort of points out of there with the off chance that it might hit in the 20s, you're definitely getting great value. So Chandler Hutchinson and Jake Layman does tend to find minutes for Minnesota. Not a lot of production, but anything you can get if you're throwing up 3,500 there. On to the power forwards. Handful of guys I really, really like here. I go with Julius Randle. I know I talked about the Nets blowing out the Knicks here, but I think Randle will get his numbers versus a really, really poor defensive team in the Nets, especially down low. He should be able to carve Aldridge and Griffin up, and they might have to go to a little bit more Nick Claxton if they want to have some youth and athleticism that could stay with Randle. But then I'd skip probably Porzingis and Siakam. I really like the Wood-Grant trio at 8,000 and 6,400. Numbers will be there, especially in their matchups. Woods put up great numbers all season long. And Jeremy Grant at 6,400 here versus OKC, I think really, really good value. I talked about Pogo a couple nights ago. I still think his value is pretty good at 5,500, especially in this matchup versus Detroit. And then some really, really sort of cheap guys I think I could pencil in there. Tony Bradley's been pretty solid for OKC, getting some minutes at 4,900. I think that wouldn't be a terrible play. Same for Rudy Gay. You have a little bit more higher upside with Rudy Gay, but 4,800, you probably could get into the 20s there, and that presents good values fantasy point wise at 4,800. I highlighted Nick Claxton because I think Aldridge and Griffin might struggle, so Nick Claxton might get a little bit of an uptick in minutes here to guard Julius Randle. And with Claxton's played, he's put in numbers, so 4,600 might be worth taking a long shot on. And George Niang at 3,500. Really, really long shot, but I think he'll have an uptick in minutes here as they try to control Doncic any way they can. So they might just have to throw bodies on him. And Niang would be one who a body they could throw on him. So he might have a little bit of an uptick in minutes in this matchup today. At center, not a whole lot. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is pretty much a must-use in center. I might go with Gobert, but the Mavs might play him a little bit off the floor here. Maybe he could stick on Porzingis, but that would be a really, really tough matchup for Gobert. But it'd be interesting to see his minutes take here, but I think he'll get some rebounds and blocks. So if you want to go there, I just don't think the value's all that there at 8,100. So I'd just ride Karl Anthony Towns as my high guy. A couple low guys I'd look at. Moses Brown, been okay for OKC. The value's starting to creep a little bit above what I'd like at 6,800. I'd like him more on that lower end of 6,000, but he's getting minutes at OKC, and with minutes come numbers. Bouchard is sort of a hot and cold play, but I think this is a game where he could get loose here in Washington at 5,000. I think that's your best play at a really, really cheap center. I'd also take a look at Rashawn Holmes here versus Minnesota. I don't know how much defense Minnesota is playing. Rashawn Holmes is a worker, and workers versus Minnesota tend to have good days. So at 7,500, I think there are a whole lot of value there. All right, let's get into our Champions League player values of the day for tomorrow's Champions League game. Really like Allison here. I think that's your best bet at goalkeeper. I think Ederson probably overpriced, especially with the way Dortmund can score. You're going to get the win, but I think your best chance for a clean sheet here is Allison. So I'd ride Allison at the $9 value here. If I was taking any goalkeeper, it would be the three-choice Allison over Thibaut Courtois or Edison. And I certainly wouldn't touch the Dortmund goalkeeper Romy Burke. So Allison would be my play at goalkeeper. Couple defenders I really, really like. I think both Cancelo and Alexander-Arnold are must find a way to get in there. I'd pretty much drop also Andrew Robinson in there, and you're still getting good value with Fabinho moving into the midfield. Essentially, you're getting a midfield player in your defensive slot. So at $12, I definitely look at Fabinho at $12 there. John Stones has been solid, but I would not really touch him. Matty Hummels, I would not get anywhere near, but Robinson and Arnold, I really look for. I think those guys can get forward versus Real Madrid, and their aging midfield still really, really productive, but aging, and those guys get forward, maybe overload the side there for Real Madrid, who has a little bit of trouble keeping up on pace, especially with these teams who come full bore. So Alexander Arnold and Robertson would be nice choices. Nathaniel Phillips has looked pretty solid for Liverpool. As a value play, I'd look there. And same with Kyle Walker. I don't know if he'll get in the side, but if he gets in the side, he gets forward and is pretty solidly productive. And versus Dortmund, it might be a nice day for him. Mindy had a nice game over the weekend. I don't know if he'll get in the side, so definitely check that. But if he's in the 11 at $6, I think there's really, really good value there. All right, let's get to the scores and the forward and midfielders. I would not use De Bruyne today. I'm really feeling like Man City might come goals from a little bit of a different source. I say different source when I have like Gundogan highlighted, but I don't think it'll be their main guys like De Bruyne and Sterling and Jesus, and maybe if Aguero plays, there's no telling. I drop down. If anybody's going to score for Real Madrid, I think it's Karim Benzema. So if you were taking one of the top line guys in De Bruyne, Benzema, Mahrez, I definitely look at Karim Benzema. I think there's really, really good value there. I'd skip on Mahrez. Erling Haaland's scoring record, I think you can't ignore, so I'd have him highlighted. Can he break down that Man City defense? I definitely think he can. And if it might come late after Man City's put the game away, but I don't think you could ever ignore Erling Haaland. But to drop down a little bit further and put in some cheaps forward midfielders here, you can't ignore what Diego Jota's done. I certainly think he will probably be in that Liverpool side. It'll be very interesting what Jurgen Klopp does, but even if he isn't, he's coming on at least at the 60-minute mark. So you get good minutes no matter what, and didn't hurt him any when he came in last week as a sub over the weekend in the Premier League. He got 2 goals, and Jota's just really, really lively now for Liverpool. If you're looking for a workman-like forward, Vinicius Jr. does everything but finish, and if he can find a way to get a finish versus Liverpool, maybe he can, but I do think numbers will be there for Vinicius. You just might not get the goal. And at an $8 value, really, really good. I talked about some Man City guys that I really, really thought might sneak into goal, but you got to really watch the side for Man City since they can rotate so many guys in there. Gundogan, Foden, and Silva, I all had highlighted. It really feels like one of those guys might be able to sneak a goal. It'll be interesting who plays on that side for Man City, but whichever one of that combination is in and playing, I definitely sneak them in there because I think a goal's coming from any one or two of those guys. The other 2 guys I had highlighted, Luka Modric definitely will create stuff. Him and Toni Kroos have just been great for Real Madrid, really controlling that midfield for Real Madrid and keeping them in games. It's not a fast pace, but if they have the ball, they aren't getting abused with that really slow back line. So look for Luka Modric maybe to create some magic for that really poor center back combination of Liverpool, and just really have liked the way Thorgan Hazard has played. If anybody I think has played really solid for Dortmund this year and has not been disappointing, I think it's been Hazard. Just like the way he's played, so maybe check to see if Hazard's in there, and if you're looking for a cheap forward midfield guy to slot in for FanDuel, I think the $6 mark for Hazard, nice shot to take. All right, let's get into our baseball. A couple pitchers I really had highlighted today. I really like Carlos Rondon's matchup versus Seattle. If he's flowing, we're getting Ks. And at 6,300, you aren't going to have to break the bank. The cheap one that I really, really like is San Diego's Adrian Morjon at 5,900. I think you could sneak some value there. If you're looking for a little bit higher end, I don't think I'd go with Grom or Jesus Sheffield, but I do like the Matt Moore matchup versus the Mets at 7,000. You aren't totally breaking the bank for him, and there's a decently high upside for him. I talked about Waka. I don't know if he'd be my first, second, or third choice, but he'd definitely take a look because I think Tampa Bay's going to win. But if he's a little off, Boston can hammer him, and that could be more of a run-scoring game. But you might get the win there, so it might be worth the $6,500 price tag that Michael Wacha has. All right, on to first base catcher. Don't like Bellinger matchup today, but I do like Jose Abreu's matchup today. And at 4,000, if I was choosing between the top guys, I'd lean a little more Abreu. But actually, I'd probably drop down to Eric Hosmer here. Really like Hosmer at the 3,700. Been really hot over the weekend to kick off the season, so I think Eric Hosmer, really good play here. But I think my play would probably be a value play here, and Keston Hiura for Milwaukee at 2,900. I think you're getting really, really good value. He's played really, really well to start the season. They haven't really jumped his price yet, so I think you're still getting decent value there. Yuri Gurriel, decent play versus a poor pitching staff in the Angels. And then I'd try some combination of Boston and Vasquez and Gonzalez. Just if Walker's off, I think maybe Boston can hit a little bit. So Vasquez, Gonzalez at really, really dirt cheap price at 2,500 might be a play to go to. All right, on to second base. Not my favorite field, but I do have a couple picks I do really like here. I think you can't ignore Altuve, but that 3,800 price tag just seems a little high. I'd probably drop down a couple spots and ride with Colton Wong and the Milwaukee Brewers. Really like this Milwaukee Brewers matchup versus the Cubs. Him leading off, you might sneak a steal or something in there too. I would not be scared to use Altuve, but I like Wong a little bit better. Enrique Hernandez for Boston, a decent choice. I already talked about Walker maybe having a little bit of a different type day. If he's off a little bit, Boston could light it up. So Enrique Hernandez presents really decent value at 2,700. And if you're looking for really, really cheap value here, Nick Martigal with the Chicago White Sox. He's batting ninth, but we'll see how this Seattle Seahawks pitcher really, really does here. But at 2,200, if you're looking for a place to hide some players who might be able to hit and get some numbers, second base might be the choice to do it. 2,200 for Nick, really solid value. I mean, he hasn't presented a ton of fantasy points this year, but any points you can get at 2,200 and then start to put some big boppers in your lineup. Really do think that's a really good value. All right, on to third base. And this, we were talking about value and saving it like second base. This is where I'd go full bore. Bregman, Machado, Rendon. I think you're good with any combination of those. I'd use any combination of those. I think they all could have really, really big days. So saving on second base, maybe saving on the pitcher slot. I told you some of the lower end guys to use, and this is where I'd unload here in Bregman, Machado, or Rendon. I wouldn't have a problem using any of those three. But if you were looking a little bit cheaper, Machado, a handful of $100 cheaper here, or really much cheaper than Bregman, but about $600, $400 cheaper than Machado and Rendon. He might have a big day versus Seattle Mariners, so I really wouldn't be scared of watching Yom. But if you're really looking to go cheap, which I don't think I would be here at third base, you could do worse than Travis Shaw and Tommy La Stella for Milwaukee and San Francisco. They're really, really cheap at 2,900 and 2,800. I give Travis Shaw a really big look. We'll see if Tommy La Stella's in the lineup. If he is, I give him a play. But Travis Shaw, I think I'd give a little bit bigger look here at 2,900 if you're looking to go cheap on third base. All right, on to shortstop. Speaking of big plays, Tatis, if you can afford him, I think always has to be in your lineup. He's just been really, really that good. So, Tatis, 4,200, but then I'd skip Seager and Lindor. Don't like their matchups today. I do like the Bogarts matchup at 3,600. Really think there's good value there, but my guys I'm playing here at shortstop, I'm dropping even cheaper, and I'm doing something of Baez or Correa. I just think that's the better play and the best play at shortstop if you aren't going to go Tatis. If you're going to go Tatis, it doesn't really matter. But if you're looking for a play at shortstop, I think I'd ride Baez or Correa. If you're looking for much cheaper options, Willy Adames for Tampa Bay. Boston's pitching is terrible. I've talked about it. Maybe you put Willie in at shortstop, then you can find a way to put Tatis in at the util spot in your lineup, so that could be a way to go for it. Brandon Crawford really can't hit anymore, but if you can find a way to get him at bats, he'll get at bats, and maybe you get some sort of pop off him if it's there. But really bad stadium matchup too at San Diego. But he's in the lineup, and if he's in the lineup, he has a chance to get points. And if you're trying to save money, you could not do much worse than Crawford, but you could do a little worse than Crawford at 2,100. But if you were going cheap, I'd look at Willie for Tampa Bay. But I'm looking at that Baez Correa spot to really, really find value there at 3,400 and 3,100 on FanDuel. All right, let's get to the outfielders. What are we looking? Trout, Yelich, I think always a must go, but I'm dropping down a little bit. I really like Randy Arozarena. Think that's great value at 3,700. You save about almost $1,000 from Trout and Yelich, so I think that's good value, especially versus Boston's poor pitching. And then Austin Meadows. Maybe you hand both Tampa Bay guys in there, the 2-3 slots. So Austin Meadows at 3,500, still really good value. And same with JD Martinez at 3,500. Drop down a little bit from there, and Tommy Pham at 3,200. Always a solid addition, though I do think he's a little overpriced today. But Eaton and Verdugo, once again, match up things. Really like this White Sox matchup versus Seattle, 3,200. Eaton could have a big day, so I'd look at Eaton a little bit here. Verdugo, it's just if Walker's a little off, maybe Verdugo could find some slots, but he's not my favorite. I drop down and go much, much cheaper and skip that and go with A.J. Pollock at 2,800. I think there's a lot of good value at 2,800 for A.J. Pollock. That might be a nice spot to slide in a cheap guy so you could afford the more expensive guys in that util spot. And then cheaper to go, Lorenzo Cain and Yoshi Testigo, I think are decent values. Testigo really might be a nice value there, betting one for Tampa Bay at 2,500. Really might be able to slide him in there. And Lorenzo Cain is always solid. All right, those are our DFS players of the day. Be sure to follow us on greenlightnetwork.org. Greenlight Network on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Champ Chesterville. You can find me at GLNChamp5. Be sure to follow us tomorrow. We're going to have our Winning Daily show, and we're going to start our Football Time podcast with Achilles Raid, and we'll be live at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. So be sure to follow that. That's our show. May the odds be ever in your favor, and we're out.